भीष्टम् स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम् वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा. So welcome back to our Saturday and Sunday series on exploring Raganuga Bhakti. Yesterday, quite elaborately, we just did an entire overview of where we are exactly. Maybe we are not lost. So we had a nice overview, beginning from the immediate discussions of definition of Raganuga Bhakti, and we quite elaborately went into where exactly we are. So yesterday the main themes what we were discussing, if you remember, after discussing about the two verses of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu which mention that lobe, greed, intense spiritual greed is the qualification to practice Raganuga Bhakti. So what is this greed? We quite elaborately had 2-3 classes on Shivram Swami Maharaj work, the Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani. And yesterday we saw further, deliberation on this greed, which we have already seen in the last classes. And then we saw yesterday the discussion of the conservative and the liberal attitudes about spontaneous devotion. And we saw how Srila Prabhupada was very liberal in his presentation of Vraj Bhakti, and how he has inculcated this right within in ISKCON, within his programs like singing the Bhagavatam, Jai Radha Madhav, the Tulsi Arti, the beautiful darshan of the deities, where we get attached to Krishna. Of course, that attachment is not a sign of raga, but definitely within the Vaidhi, there is raga. And slowly, by practicing very meticulously Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, a day will come with the purification happening, with the anarth nivritti happening. We will, enter into the temple of spontaneous devotion, Raga Bhakti, we will be entering. So yesterday, quite in detail, we discussed, the verses from Rag Vartma Chandrika, how, it is Lobh, hearing the beautiful moods of the Vrajbasis worship of Krishna. That is the real, Lobh which you acquire. And this Lobh doesn't use Shastra or Yukti. It is pure intense greed by which we are attracted to practice further devotion following these Vrajvasis. And there are this two such greeds. One is, ancient, and other is, present. Ancient means in his previous life, he acquired this Lobh by the mercy of a sadhu. And present is in this life coming in touch with the sadhu, he has got his mercy and he has now acquired this greed. So we also saw this. And then this path is called as Raganuga Bhakti or the Pushti Marg. So when both these devotees, uh, uh, acquire that greed, then they look for the directions from the scriptures and systems to practice. Today we will be going into one of the systems, the first practice of a Raganuga Bhakta we will be going. So just like milking a cow, you need to have knowledge of how to get the cow, how to feed the grass, how the calf is born, and then you get the milk. So similarly, we need to know the scriptures of practice of Raganuga Bhakti, which we attain from very, very pure devotees who are themselves expert in, these practices, who are very elevated. So this is what we saw in few of the verses from Ragavartma Chandrika. And, this is where the discussion we had till yesterday. Then there is one verse which we discussed yesterday, is a point which Rupa Goswami raises. Is Vaidhi Sadhaka dependent on Shastra till he reaches Bhava? And we saw that, there is until the appearance of Bhava Bhakti. So what to speak then? Raganuga Bhakti also, there is use of Shastra, but Shastra for attaining Vraj Bhakti. So there is not that, Raganuga Bhakta gives up logic and Shastra. No, he has to refer to, the Shastras like Bhagavatam and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in order to spontaneously practice Raganuga Bhakti. So that is the point yesterday we had seen. So today we will begin our discussion with practice of Raganuga Bhakti. So what is the practice Raganuga Bhakta does? So this is the discussion which is starting from today now, which we are going to discuss. So Rupa Goswami mentions the practice of the Raganuga Bhakta in 3 verses, 294, 295 and 296. In these three verses, he gives the practice of a Raganuga Bhakta. Just a second. Let me see whether is the audio very clear to all of you? Or is there any disturbance? I hope the audio is clear, right? Yeah, fine. Okay. So just wanted to check. So now, in today's class, we will see the practice of a Raganuga Bhakta. And as I mentioned, Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in 3 verses, he explains the practice of Raganuga Bhakti. So this is the first verse. So each verse we will be going a little more detail so that we can understand what lofty are the levels of practice of a Raganuga Bhakta, firstly. Secondly, we will also understand, oh, this is the qualification required. Now, at this stage in my Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, what I should do so that I can come to that stage. So these 2 aspects we will be trying to understand from these 3 verses. So let us recite 294. Krishnam smaran janam chasya preshtam nija samihitam tat tat kataratas chasyo kuryad vasam vraje sada. Remembering the Vrindavan form of Krishna, Krishna Smaran. So, Raganuga Bhakti is only exclusively to Sham Sundar Krishna, not to Dwarka Krishna or Mathura Krishna. And we saw Ragatmika Bhaktas are only the Vrajvasis. So our meditation should be only on Vrindavan form of Krishna, Sham Sundar Krishna. So Krishna Smaran and his dear associates, Cha Asya Preshtam Janam. Because in Raganuga Bhakti, we follow the Ragatmika Bhaktas, and the Ragatmika Bhaktas are the associates of Krishna who practice devotion in that mood. So Preshta refers to the dear associates. Srimati Radharani's name is, one of her names is Preshta. Preshta means very dear. She is very dear to Krishna. And all the associates of Krishna's are also Preshtas. It can refer to Srimati Radharani, all the Sakis, all the Gopis. It can refer to Nanda Maharaj, Yashoda. It can refer to Sridhama, Sudhama in Sakyaras. It can refer to Raktak and Patrak who are in Dasiras. So all these are dear associates. We should remember Krishna as well as his dear associates who have inclinations for similar service of one's own. Nija Samahitam. So if my mood is of a Vatsalya, then I will remember Krishna and Krishna's dear associates like Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj. If my mood is that of a Sakya, then I will remember the friends of Krishna like Sridhama and Sudhama. Both Krishna and his friends according to his own mood, according to his similar service. Absorbing oneself in hearing topics related to them. Tat tat kata rata. That means he hears, his interest is more of hearing those pastimes which are related to that particular mood. Like the Bal Leela of Krishna, those who want to develop their mood in Vatsalya mood, they would love to hear more the Bal Leela of Krishna. It doesn't mean that they don't hear others. They hear others, but they have more interest in this. So this is tat tat kata rata. So this is the second thing. And one should live in Vraja. Kuryad Vasam Vraje Sada. So here we can see there is three things which are mentioned. One is Smaran of Krishna and his dear devotees. Secondly, service according to his own inclination. Thirdly, hearing about Tat Tat Kata according to that same mood. And fourthly is residing in Vraj. So four things have been mentioned here in this verse. So these four things are the limbs or practice of a Raganuga Bhakta who is a sadhaka, because it is, Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. We should always remember this. So let us see what Vishwanath Chakra Thakur has. Now starts the description of the method of Raganuga Sadhana. So what is the method? Now the description begins. One should remember the most dear form of Krishna, Preshtam Krishnam, the son of Nanda of Kaishwar age. So is Shamchandra Krishna. And the devotees of that particular form of Krishna, Asya Janam, who have the same type of desires for serving Krishna as oneself. Nija Samahitam. So this I explained. Remembering such devotees, one should live in Vraja. If possible, one should physically live in Vraja, the place where Krishna resided as Nanda's son. If one cannot do that, one should live there mentally. So either physical or mental. So both, are allowed. Now again, let us come to Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani, chapter 12, spontaneous devotional service in practice, part 2. What Shivaram Swami Maharaj has to say about this verse. Shivaram Swami Maharaj goes quite in detail to explain this verse, and let us hear from him what he has to say. The preceding chapter discussed the principles of spontaneous devotional service. This chapter describes the activities devotees perform when influenced by genuine greed. So in chapter 11, what is this genuine greed? A lot of analysis was done, whether we have that adhikar, that actual real spiritual greed, all that was very elaborately discussed. Now in this chapter, that is chapter 12, what is the discussion? The activities the devotees perform, those who have developed this genuine greed. Srila Rupa Goswami describes in 3 verses the activities of spontaneous devotional service in practice, as I mentioned, 294 to 96. There are 2 aspects of Raganuga Bhakti, external and internal. So this is very, very important for us to understand. Externally qualified devotees practice like neophytes and follow the scriptural injunctions of regulative devotional. So Raganuga Bhakta, he externally acts like a Vaidhi Bhakti and follows all the limbs of Vaidhi Bhakti also, especially concerning chanting and hearing, as did the associates of Lord Chaitanya such as Rupa Goswami and others. So externally he does this. Such qualified devotees also try to emulate the types of services Lord Chaitanya's associates engaged in and offered, such as writing books, building temples, and other forms of giving Krishna consciousness to conditioned souls. So externally also, they are following the rules, regulative principles. They are also doing external activities like writing books, building temples, and preaching. So this is all happening. These devotees always think of Krishna and internally follow the activities of an inhabitant of Vrindavan to whom they have become specifically attracted. So, Nija Preshtam. Preshtam means dear associates of the Lord. They think about Krishna, Krishna Smaran, and Nija Preshta. They remember also the dear devotees of Krishna whose mood they want to emulate. While residing in Vrindavan, such fortunate devotees constantly converse about their favorite devotees and the relationship these devotees have with Krishna. If physically unable to live in Vrindavan, they reside there mentally. This Vishwanath Chakra Thakur also made clear. So they will discuss or converse those pastimes of those devotees. Those who are in the Vatsalya Ras will discuss about the activities of Mother Yashoda, especially the Damodar Leela pastime. So like that, those favorite devotee pastimes are very attractive for them. So here in the Chaitanya Charitamrit, the verse is quoted. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself is explaining to Sanatan Goswami, Bhai antarayar doita sadhana, bhaya sadhaka deha kare, shravana kirtana, mane nijya siddha deha, kariya bhavana, ratri dine kare, vraje krishna rasevana. There are 2 processes by which one may execute this Raganuga Bhakti. Duite sadhana, external and internal. Bhai means external, bhaya, and antara means internal. When self-realized, so here is a very important word. I told you at the stage of Nishtha, one attains self-realization. He realizes that he is Atma. An advanced devotee externally remains like a neophyte. Bhaya sadhaka deha kare shravana kirtan and executes all the shastric injunctions, especially those of hearing and chanting. Especially one who has moved into Raganuga Bhakti, he is more inclined for chanting and hearing. But within his mind, Mane, in his original purified self-realized position, Nija Siddha Deha, we will come to what this exact term Nija Siddha Deha is. He serves Krishna in Vrindavan in a particular way, in a particular mood. He serves Krishna 24 hours a day, all day and night. Ratri dine kare vraje Krishnera sevan. So this is also, what are the activities of a Raganuga sadhaka? Chaitanya Charitamrit, Kaviraj Goswami is describing what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is speaking. Now we discuss the first of the 3 verses. In this verse, Rupa Goswami in more detail how spontaneous practitioners meditate on services rendered by the Vrajvasis who have captured their hearts, he has mentioned. So this is the verse we have already seen from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This is also quoted in the Nectar of Devotion, eighth verse of Nectar of Instruction. One verse, Rupa Goswami in his Updeshamrit gives the sadhana for Raganuga Bhakti, and we will be also discussing that. Devotees unable to live in Vrindavan should practice living there mentally. Even mental residence fulfills Rupa Goswami's instruction and makes it possible to practice spontaneous devotional service anywhere in the world. So this is how glorious is, the internal meditation on Vrindavan. Now a question is, how does a devotee remember Krishna and his associates? What is, Krishna Smaran and Nija Preshta? How is it? Since one cannot practice remembrance, Smaran, artificially, one must have two prerequisites, purity of heart and suitable knowledge. So to do Smaran, we need two things, purity of heart. So at the stage of Nishtha, the heart is sufficiently purified to practice Smaran. And we have knowledge of the Shastras. Because, one who's at the stage of Nishtha, he is very well versed in Shastras. He's Nipun in Shastra, Shastra Yukta Nipuna. He's very Nipun. And he knows the Shastras which speak about Raganuga Bhakti, the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So these are the two prerequisites. Purity of heart makes the mind peaceful enough to enter thoughts of Vrindavan. Knowledge of the Vrajvasis' pastimes, features, and qualities provides the subject matter in which to immerse the mind. We have to remember, but there has to be a subject for remembrance. So the subject is, the descriptions of Krishna's associates, the pastimes which Krishna does, which is filled in the entire 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And various acharyas have written commentaries on it. So a Raganuga Bhakta will also study these commentaries and understand more in detail the Vraj pastimes of Krishna according to his mood. He will immerse his mind in these kind of things. In this regard, Srila Prabhupada was fond of quoting the following two verses from Narottam Das Thakur. Vishaya chadiya kabe shuddha hobe man kabe hama heribo Shri Vrindavan. When the mind is completely purified, being freed from material anxieties and desires, then I shall be able to understand Vrindavan and the conjugal love of Radha and Krishna, and then my spiritual life will be successful. So, Shuddha hobe man. The point is that the heart should be purified. Then only remembrance of Vrindavan pastimes can happen in the heart. The subject matter can happen. And another quote is Rupa Raghunatha Pade Hoibe Akuti Kabe Hama Bujabo Seyugala Pariti. When shall I be able to eager to study the books left by the 6 Goswamis? So this is the subject, knowledge. Where we get the knowledge? About Krishna, his associates, his pastimes. We get the knowledge from the 6 Goswamis. When I'm eager to study, Akuti means eagerness to study the works of Rupa and Raghunath. And especially Rupa Goswami's Nectar of Devotion and Nectar of Instruction. I'm repeatedly emphasizing this because these two books are the pinnacle of books for Gaudiya Vaishnavas, for ISKCON. That is why Srila Prabhupada recommended them as part of Bhakti Shastri, knowing the importance of it. Headed by Srila Rupa and Raghunath Das Goswami. By their instructions, I shall able to properly understand the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. So this is the two prayers of Narottam Das Thakur in Pratana 1.3 and 4. Devotees must first achieve freedom from material contamination by practicing the step-by-step process of regulative devotion outlined by Rupa Goswami. So Rupa Goswami has outlined that in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu as well as in Upadeshamrit. The mind then purified can gain knowledge of Vrindavan from the books of 6 Goswamis and their authorized followers in the line of our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. So these are the books we should also prefer. Attraction to a resident of Vrindavan develops in stages. Now it is one mentioned, na, Nija Preshta. We should also follow the Preshta devotees. So this doesn't happen suddenly, abruptly. It happens very, very systematically in stages. Let us see what are the stages. First, a general attraction for a particular devotional mood arises, perhaps friendship or conjugal love. So there is a general attraction which we develop initially. This is after Nishta again. Next, a specific attraction to devotees who render service in that mood develops. So first is a general attraction, slowly then a specific attraction develops. The last to awaken when taste and attachment. So here, taste and attachment refers to the stages after Nishta. After Nishta is Ruchi. Ruchi is called as taste. And further, a higher taste is called as Asakti. So Nishta, Ruchi, Asakti. After Asakti, it is Bhava. You know, Raganuga Bhakti is begins from Nishta stage and gradually progresses to Ruchi and Asakti. And please mind and please understand, this is although very lofty, but still it is part of sadhana bhakti. After asakti, when one attains bhava bhakti, then that bhakti is no more sadhana bhakti, it is bhava bhakti. With attainment of bhava bhakti, one will attain prema bhakti. So the way to attain bhava bhakti is from Vaidhi. Then the transition is Raganuga Bhakti. So Raganuga Bhakti is a transition by which we can enter into Bhava Bhakti. So here the point is, at last to awaken when taste and attachment have matured. So Ruchi, you go through the stages of Ruchi, you go through the stages of Asakti, and it becomes matured. The attraction to a specific Vrajvasi. So gradually from general to specific, and then with these higher stages of Ruchi and Asakti, there is what? Specific attraction to a Brajvasi. When devotee evolved to ecstatic love. Now after Asakti is Bhava Bhakti, they are no longer at the stage of practice. They are not now practicing Sadhana Bhakti. Now they are practicing Bhava Bhakti. Revelation confirms or modifies their spiritual identity and the particulars of who they are following in Vraj. So this all things are revealed in the heart with the purification happening, and it is revealed by the spiritual master because there is constant guidance from the spiritual master. Even after cultivating mountains of knowledge, however, devotees cannot remember Krishna and his associates without mental purity. So if you have tons of knowledge, still you cannot remember if your heart is not pure. So that is why Vishaya Chadiya, Kabe Shuddha Hobe Man, when will my heart become pure? The mind plays an essential role in remembrance and hence in spontaneous practice. So the main limb in Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti is the mind. Remembrance is the main limb. Smaranam. You know, when we will refer to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Rag Vartma Chandrika, he will bring out that point. Therefore, genuine Raganuga Bhakti cannot be imitated. It cannot be artificially imitated. Devotees either have control of the mind or they do not. So as I was explaining, at the stage of Nishtha, one is once self-realized. So one is able to control his mind and senses fully because he's self-realized. And the mind now can completely, be fixed in remembrance, Maranam. I will tell you one interesting incident which happened, when I was traveling to Vrindavan in a train. So while I was traveling, I was seated in the train. I was just alone there. So I was just having some books. I was reading and I was in between chanting, reading, chanting. Suddenly, a boy who was sitting, he came next to me and started asking some spiritual questions. I thought he is interested in spirituality. That's why he's asking. I discovered that this person was trying to preach me. So he said, leave all these practices of chanting and reading. Just remember, just go into Smaranam, just go into Smaranam. I could immediately detect that this person is following a false guru. So he said, my guru stays in Vrindavan and he tells, we should simply be absorbed in remembering Krishna's pastimes, just do Smaranam. So, moment he started preaching this, I said, please go and sit in your seat and don't disturb me. I want to do my chanting and reading. So, repeatedly he was coming to me and telling me and requesting me, just go into Smaranam. So I just bothered and I just ignored him. And later on, after our travel was over, we reached Mathura. By the time he was sick, and he could not do anything about itself. He could not move also. Somehow I dropped him to the Ramakrishna Mission Hospital and thanked him for his company. And there he somehow sobered down and he realized, so when the bodily trouble comes, then we cannot remember what to speak of, remembering Krishna's pastimes. When some bodily troubles are there, the mind is so disturbed. Srila Prabhupada, for the verse in Upadesh Amrit, text 8, Smarto Kramena, Srila Prabhupada in 2 paragraphs explains how, the psychological workings of the mind are. That the mind has unlimited impressions and at the time of death these can disturb us and these impressions can suddenly spring and we might remember something else. So it is important for the mind to control. Srila Prabhupada there emphasizes in his purport about controlling the mind. So there has to be control of the mind, and Raganuga Bhakti cannot be imitated. Mental control and meditation are pillars of the eightfold yoga system, and as such, they play important roles in Bhakti Yoga also. So, what is there in Ashtanga Yoga? There is a yama, niyama, asana, pranayam, pratyahar. After pratyahar, one is able to, because of mental purity, able to meditate. There is dharan, there is more meditation in the form of dhyan, and then samadhi. So, these pillars of meditation, which are there in the Ashtanga Yoga, they also play a very important role in Bhakti Yoga. Anyone who has questions anytime during the discussion can raise his hand, right? Vaishnava Acharyas delineate 5 stages of absorption in thoughts of Krishna, beginning with hearing, Shravanam, and it ending with the attainment of one's spiritual form, Apana, the qualification to enter Krishna's Leela forever. In spontaneous practice, these stages of remembrance are generally cultivated while performing japa or kirtan of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So this smaran is done mainly through japa and kirtan, and these are 5 stages, and we will go into these 5 stages, what they are. Now, explains these 5 also nectar of instruction state, so that I have included this. This is also one verse which explains Raganuga Bhakti Sadhana. Tannama Rupa Charitadi Sukirtanano Smartyo Kramena Rasana Manasi Niyojya Tishtan Vraje Tad Anuragi Jananugami Kalam Nayet Akhilam Iti Upadesha Saram. The essence of all advice, Iti Upadesha Saram, Upadeshamrit, the essence here now, Rupa Goswami is giving in text 8, is that one should utilize Nahet, one's full time, 24 hours a day, Kalam Akhilam, in nicely chanting and remembering. Su Kirtananu Smartyo Kramena, in the Lord's divine name, form, qualities, pastimes. Tanna Nama Rupa Charitadi, thereby gradually engaging one's tongues and mind. Rasana Manasi Niyojya. In this way, one should reside in Vraj, tishtan vraje, to serve Krishna under the guidance of devotees. Tad anuragi janam. So those who are these ragatmika bhaktas, here anuragi means these ragatmika bhaktas. We have to serve under their guidance. One should follow the footsteps of the Lord's beloved devotees, anugami. So we should follow. So following the ragatmika bhaktas, the bhakti which is practiced is raganuga bhakti, who are deeply attached to his devotional service. Tad anuragi. They are very attached to Krishna. So here, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains the stages of remembrance from Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's commentary. So just previously we saw that there are 5 stages, Shravana and Apana. Apana is where when we attain spiritual form. So here I have mentioned here in the chart, Shravana Dasha, constant hearing. Then there is Varana Dasha, Smarana Dasha, Apana Dasha, where we realize our spiritual form, understand his spiritual constitutional position. And then there is Sampati Dasha. Sampati Dasha is perfection in life, clearly understand his eternal relationship with Krishna. So Shravana Dasha, it begins here. Varana Dasha is the stage of acceptance, becoming attached to hearing Krishna Katha. And then Smarana Dasha is stage of remembrance or chanting in ecstasy. Now within this Smarana Dasha, there are 5 sub-stages: Smarana, Dharana, Dhyana, Anusmriti, and Samadhi. So from Nishta, we slowly go through Asakti, Ruchi, Asakti, and at the end of Asakti, when our form is revealed, spiritual form is revealed, we enter Bhava. Here we enter the stage of Bhava. Apan Dasha is where we enter the stage of Bhava Bhakti. And this Sampati Dasha is Prema Bhakti. And this Smaran goes through these 5 stages. So let us see what are these 5 stages, step by step. Succession from Raganuga Sadhana to Bhava Bhakti, the 5 stages of absorption. So we are going to go into this now, step by step. I have just shown in the slide, but we will see step by step. Any questions, any clarifications you have up till now, what we have discussed? Any questions? Okay. So let's see the 5 stages of absorption. This section sheds light on the nature of spontaneous practice and the inner skills required to successfully take it up. Skills that separate real spontaneous devotion from an imitative show. All these abilities evolve. 5 main stages of absorption are distinguishable: hearing, Shravana; acceptance, Varana; remembrance, Smarana; achievement, Apana; and perfection, Sampati. So here are these 5 dashas which I had shown in the picture. Shravana Dasha, Varana Dasha, Dasha it is, not Das. Smarana Dasha, Dasha means state. Apana Dasha and Sampati Dasha. So let us go now first to Smaran Dasha. In the beginning, devotees hear philosophical truths about Krishna, description of his form, pastimes, and associates, and above all, they chant and hear Krishna's holy names. This stage is called Shravana Dasha. Now, we are all in the stage of Shravana Dasha. That is why first thing we should understand, to advance in sadhana bhakti, we should hear Krishna Katha. We should read about Krishna, the books like Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and we should hear also from pure devotees regularly. It should be a matter of practice that, just like we have our quota of food 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we take that quota to maintain our body. So similarly, we should, fix our quota of hearing and study as to maintain our spiritual, development, spiritual nourishment. It is very, very important. So this Shravan Dasha begins right from the beginning stages. But slowly, as one reaches Nishta, his hearing is so fixed. He's so absorbed in hearing. And whatever he hears in a class, he can remember, he can summarize all the points. So there is steady hearing practices, and there are unsteady hearing. There is unsteady hearing. So when our bhajan is anishtita bhajan kriya, it is called. Anishtita bhajan kriya means anarth nivritti has not happened. While we are hearing, we get distracted, or whatever we hear, we cannot understand it, or we cannot summarize the points. So all this is happening when we are doing bhajan kriya, where anarth nivritti has still not happened. And this is called as anishtita bhajan kriya. But when anarth nivritti happens, we practice nishtita bhajan kriya. Nishtita bhajan kriya means steady practice of devotion, where even hearing is very fixed. One is fixed in hearing and is fixed in not only hearing, he is able to understand the subject very clearly. In anishtita bhajan kriya, hearing, when whatever he hears, he still cannot understand the philosophical truths clearly. So in nishtita bhajan kriya, he not only understands, but he can summarize everything. So this is all Shravana Dasha. Fixed in service, devotees then develop a taste for Krishna's names and pastimes, chant without offense, and accept their identity as Krishna's eternal servants. Nitya Krishna Das. So, fixed means steadiness. Steady in service, steady in chanting, steady in hearing. So, they are chanting now without offense. So, definitely here it means that we have crossed the Namaprad stage and come to the Namabha stage. And we have our identity because in Nishta stage, we are self-realized. So we understand that we are Atma, we are Jivera Sarup Hoy, Krishnera Nitya Das. A general understanding is there, not fully specific at Nishta. The desire to follow the Ragatmika residents of Vraja then awakens, and such devotees enter the stage of Varana Dasha. So from the stage of Shravan Dasa, from unsteady hearing to steady hearing, and when that steady is very, very fixed and we are fixed in our identity, we come to the stage of Varana Dasha. So now, dear devotees, please understand the path of this stage of Shravan Dasha to Varana Dasha. The stage of Shravan Dasha to Varana Dasha is a very long stage. It takes many years. It takes many years to go from the stage of Shravan Dasha to Varana Dasha. Now it is for up to us that how long we want to make it. We can, plan ourselves to regularly chant our rounds, regularly read Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and other scriptures, hear regularly on a regular basis. So the more we hear, we do this Shravan Dasha, the more we fill our heart with Krishna Katha. It is like, I give this example, in the villages there are wells, and, the well, when the water hits there, it starts coming up and it starts flowing up. And even with the rainwater, the groundwater gets charged, it starts flowing up. Similarly, our heart is like a dry well, and we should, lot of hearing we should do, we should feel that, I need at least 10 years to hear. I need to hear so many topics, but of course it should be done in a very regulated manner, in a systematic manner. That's my point. So the more we hear, it is like filling our heart, filling our heart with the nectar of Krishna Katha. And when the heart starts overpouring, we naturally feel that we also want to share this knowledge with others. So Shravan and Kirtan, when it happens, then the Smaran also takes. So because these are the three, stages, Shravan, Kirtan, and Smaran among the 9 limbs. So that is how, we can come to this stage of Smaran. We need to hear. We need to hear systematically. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his work Jaiva Dharma, mentions there is Krama Shravana and Akrama Shravana. Krama Shravana means systematic hearing. Not that today, one day I study one book, next day I study other book, next day I study a third book. No. For my level, I feel these books are important, so I study them systematically. Then next, oh, every day I study one verse of Bhagavad Gita and two verses of Bhagavatam. So systematically one should do this kind of Shravan. So if one does systematic Shravan, then he can move, from the Shravan Dasha to the Varan Dasha. He can reduce that gap. That is my point here. So this is Varan Dasha. This happens after the stage of Nishtha. We should be very clear, because they are fixed in services mentioned. Genuine attachment to Krishna Katha and pure chanting enables spontaneous devotees to remember the Vrajvasis and their service to Krishna. So how do these devotees remember the Vrajvasis? Because of Asakti now. Ruchi is there and Asakti. So at the stage of Asakti, we are attached to Krishna and we are attached to chanting Krishna's names. And then the heart is still more purified. So the remembrance of Rajvasis and their services also manifest at this stage. This is how progressive the internal journey within the heart is being described through this remembrance of these stages. Such fortunate devotees can enter the stage of Smaran Avastha. Now, the Smaran Avastha, which has 5 subdivisions. So I showed you in the chart that it has these 5 subdivisions. Smaran Dasha has these 5 subdivisions. So let us see these 5 subdivisions. Oh, it is there. I have put it in the chart here. So these are the 5 subdivisions. Each is very specific and very distinguishing. So let us go to this Paranavastha, the subdivisions in Smaran Dasha. First, the stage of recollection, Smaran, in which the meditation of inexperienced devotees is easily broken by wandering thoughts and external distractions. So our Smaran is not continuous, we get distracted, because of the wandering thought, the mind wandering and the external distractions. With time, the stage of plenary absorption, dharana, develops, in which the mind is freed from distractions by the strength of the holy name. At this stage, remembrance proceeds uninterrupted. So here there is some interruption because of the wandering mind and the thoughts, but slowly we get more absorption. That is dharana stage. When uninterrupted remembrance gains momentum and it becomes strong, it is concentrated dhyan. So dharana becomes stronger. It becomes, we gain momentum. Just like from the hill, when we start coming down, because of the downhill, there is momentum for the vehicle which moves faster. So our remembrance also gains momentum like that. When such remembrance becomes effortless flow, it is called as constant or anusmriti. Anu means continuous. Smriti means remembrance, constant flow. This is what Kunti Maharani is praying in her prayers in the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 8th chapter. Tvai me ananya vishaya rati madhupate sakrit. Tvai me ananya vishaya. Let my object of remembrance be mati. Let my intelligence, let my heart be fixed on remembrance you. Rati means attraction. Madhupate Sakrit. Krishna is being addressed here as Madhupate because he was born in the Madhu dynasty. The Yadu dynasty had one king called as King Madhu. So sometimes the Yadu dynasty is also called as the Madhu dynasty. Vaishnava Acharyas give another explanation for this Madhu. Just like honey, when you start pouring, the honey flows continuously. It doesn't break. You have seen this. You have this experience. Whereas water or any other liquid, it can break. But the honey flow is very continuous. Similarly, let my mind constantly think continuously flow towards you. This is Kunti Maharani. So this is effortless flow. And what is the example Kunti Maharani gives there? You know, Ganga Ogam Udanvati. Just like the Gangas, relentlessly, without any external obstacles or internal obstacles, just flows towards the ocean. So let my mind just flow towards your lotus feet. So the Ganga, while flowing from the Himalayas towards Ganga Sagar, that is in West Bengal, to meet the ocean, there might be many external obstacles like the rocks and the trees, but the Ganges breaks through all this. And internally, the Ganga water doesn't hold water to herself. All the water overflows. Similarly, externally, a devotee, all external obstacles might come internally, but his remembrance flows. And internally, his heart is pure. So that is why internally also there is no obstacle. So this is what is effortless flow. And we can understand how, these stages are. The final stage of constant remembrance is called trance, samadhi, in which devotees freed from all bodily designations becomes fully become fully absorbed in the object of their meditation. Such is the absorption in the object that we forget ourselves. We forget that whom we are meditating upon. So such deep is the absorption. This stage of trance concludes Smaranavastha. So these 5 stages which we saw in that, there is Samadhi, then Smaranavastha is finished, Smaran Dasha is finished. Next is one more Dasha now. This stage of trance concludes Smaranavastha and its attainment signals the end of sadhana and all devotional activities performed in bondage. From here on, devotees are freed from all touch of matter because now they go into bhava bhakti. As I mentioned here in the chart, after these 5 stages of Smaran Dasha, Apan Dasha is when Smaran Dasha is fully developed, they understand their constitution, position in Krishna. Bhava Bhakti, our Swarupa is revealed. Swarupa means what is our form in the spiritual world. And in rasa, in relation to Krishna, what is our rasa? And we actually start exchanging rasa with Krishna. And Krishna sometimes also gives darshan to such a devotee internally in his heart, as Narad Muni in his previous life had. And he experiences in Bhava Bhakti the symptoms, the Ashta Sattvika Vikar. Achievement, Apana Dasha, takes place at the stage of ecstatic devotion, Bhava Bhakti, and is on the spiritual platform. This is Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma. This is a transcendental. Now you are transcended matter. At this stage, spiritual practice reaches perfection. Devotees realize their spiritual forms, Siddha Swarup it is called. Their spontaneous practices mature and they factually know their eternal relationship with Krishna. So, as I explained, the further stages of absorption and ecstasy culminate in loving service, the ultimate goal of life. That is Prema Bhakti. Devotees then attain perfection of life, Sampati Dasha, and go back to Godhead. So this is the internal path. This is called as the Antarpata. Raghunath Das Goswami, this path was revealed to Raghunath Das Goswami by Sarup Damodar. We will not go into that details, but this is called as the Antapata. And by this Antapata internal path, we attain this perfection. So here again, I would like to bring out to devotees that from these 5 stages of Smaran Dasha, we attain Apan Dasha Bhava Bhakti, and then Sampati Dasha is Prema Bhakti. So from Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, we go to Bhava Bhakti at Apan Dasha and Prema Bhakti at Sampati Dasha. Now my focus is here, Shravan Dasha. This Shravan Dasha to Varan Dasha is a very long stage in spiritual life, and we should work on it very, very systematically. We should plan. We should plan to hear Krishna Katha. We should plan to read, the philosophy. We should plan to, do our chanting. Chanting is also Shravan. So the more we do all this Shravan Dasa nicely, then we can come to this next stage. So this is a very important thing for us, and this is very important. Although these all stages are only practiced by Raganuga Bhakti, but for us, what is take home that we should practice this very very meticulously. It takes at least 10 to 15 years of hearing of philosophy, where our understanding of the philosophy matures also. So, and even 10 to 15 years of chanting, which if it is done very steadily. So, dear devotees, this is very important that we practice this Shravan Dasha very nicely in our spiritual life. So, let us now further go. From the above description, it should be clear that spontaneous practice, Raganuga Bhakti, although impelled by attraction of the heart, is neither a whimsical nor sentimental affair. Bhava Bhakti bhavuk nahi hai. This is not something bhavuk. It is very, very scientific. It is not something to be taken lightly or artificially, nor it is something to be forced upon others. You cannot force somebody, to remember Krishna without the purity of heart. True followers of this path know that devotees not drawn to Raganuga Bhakti will also achieve ecstatic devotion when their regulative practices mature. So they encourage these devotees to follow the path of regulative devotion. So the emphasizes, many devotees were asking me a question. This discussion of exploring Raganuga Bhakti is very lofty, and maybe is it, I'm not practicing it, whether it is worth it to hear. Yes, it is worth it to hear because it is part of sadhana bhakti. First thing, it is, we are not speaking about bhava bhakti or prema bhakti, and it is part of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Eastern Division. In the Eastern Division, there are 4 waves. It is part of the second wave, sadhana bhakti wave, and it is part of Bhakti Shastri course. Even Bhava Bhakti and Prema Bhakti are part of Bhakti Shastri course. All this, hearing and understanding helps us to practice regulative devotion so that our regulative devotion will mature. We will be attracted. Let me practice now meticulously regulative devotional service. Srila Prabhupada summarizes Rupa Goswami's verse as follows. When one is actually liberated from material contamination, he can always remember an eternal devotee in Vrindavan in order to love Krishna in the same capacity. And developing such an aptitude, one will always live in Vrindavan even within his mind. So, Nectar of Devotion, chapter 16, which is speaking about, Raganuga Bhakti, Srila Prabhupada makes this point. So here we finish the discussion of this Smaran, Krishna Smaran, which was mentioned in one verse, and remembering his pure devotees, Nija, Preshta, and then Kuryat Brajavasam, and hearing about Krishna Katha. So that one verse which we, saw as practice of Raganuga Sadhana, Krishna Swaram, so remembrance of Krishna and his devotees, and his, hearing about them and residing there. So this is how we discussed the whole thing about, this verse. Any questions, any clarifications you have regarding up till now what we discussed? Any questions or any clarifications? Sorry. Okay, then let us now, we'll take few more minutes and discuss from Rag Vartma Chandrika about this, verse, what Vishwanath Chakra Thakur has to say about this. Let us hear from Rag Vartma Chandrika. Now, in the last class, yesterday's class, we saw up to 10th verse text. Now, part of it is only here. Tatcha Shastram Sarvopanishad Sarvabhutam Esham Aham Priyatma Sutascha Saka Guru Suridaivaishtam Iti Adi Vakya Nichaka Akarshi Shri Bhagavatam Mahapuranam Eva. So we saw this yesterday that the essence of all Shastra is Bhagavatam, and Kapila is saying, they are what? Aham Priya, they are very dear to me, beloved, Atma, life and soul, Suta, they consider my son. So this is very intimately relating the Lord and the devotee. This happens only at Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. And there is also description in the literatures like Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. So we had discussed this verse yesterday. Now we are continuing the discussion here. Now he says, Tatra Trayam Vakya Tatratvam Vakya Trayam Yatha. The sacred text, means Tatra, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, explains how Raghunaga Bhakti can be achieved. In this regard, 3 verses have been cited. So same 3 verses even Vishwanath Chakra Thakur cites. So this is that verse, Krishna Smaram Jana Chasya, which we already read. This is the second verse. When we go to the second verse, we will discuss more in detail. Seva sadhaka rupena siddha rupena chatrahi tad bhava lipsuna karya vraja loka anu sarata. And then this is the third verse. So we will not discuss these 3 verses because now we are only discussing 294. So what Vishnu Chakra Thakur has to say about 294, let us see. Traikam atra kamanubha paksha eva vakyatyata. These 3 verses from Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu were written with the aim of delineating the requisites for practicing Raghunaga Bhakti. So this is exactly what Shivaram Maharaj also says, and Vishwanath Chakra Thakur in his commentary to Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. Herein, they will be explained in terms of Kamanuga Bhakti. Kamanuga. So we know that Raganuga Bhakti is divided into 2 divisions. As Ragatmika Bhakti is divided into 2 divisions, Kama Rupa Ragatmika Bhakti and Sambandha Rupa. Similarly, Raganuga is divided into Kamanuga and Sambandhanuga. So he is going to explain, Vishwanath Chakra Thakur, according to the terms of Kamanuga Bhakti. So only Kamanuga Bhakti he is going to explain. Pratamata Krishnam Smaran iti smaranasyatra Raganugam Mukyatvam Ragasya Mano Dharmatvat. In the first Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu verse quoted in text 10, the phrase Krishna Smarana, meaning remembering Sri Krishna, indicates that the limb of Smaranam, remembrance, is prominent in the path of Raganuga, as Rag is a function of the mind. So we saw that also. So how to come to the stage of Smaranam? First is Shravanam, and we should start to preach. Kirtanam. Kirtanam is to preach. So the more we preach Krishna consciousness, it doesn't mean that, you should hold classes, oh, I am at home, how can I preach? Take your neighbor and sit and preach. We can always do 1-to-1. So all this is Kirtanam. So Shravana Kirtanam. The more we do Shravanam and Kirtanam, then we can come to this Smaranam. So then we can advance from Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti to Raganuga Bhakti, because Raganuga Bhakti is solely dependent on Smaranam, because Rag is a function of the mind. Preshtam Nija Bhavochita Leela Vilasinam Krishnam Vrindavani Adishwaram. Preshtam means most beloved. I said, na, Preshta. Preshta is the name of Radharani. Indicates Sri Krishna, the beloved Lord of Vrindavan, who enjoys pastimes in a form corresponding to one's desire. So Krishna Preshta is also referring to, our beloved Lord is Sri Krishna. Asya Krishnasya Janam Cha Kridisham Nija Samahitam Swabhilashaniyam Shri Vrindavaneshwari Lalita Vishaka Shri Rupa Manjari Adhikam. The word Janam Chasya refers to Sri Krishna's nearest and dearest. So we should remember Krishna and his dear devotees. So who are they? Who are they? To answer this question, the adjective Nija Samahitam is used, indicating those associates who possess the mood for which one is aspiring, like Vrindavaneshwari, Srimati Radharani, Lalita, Vishaka, Rupa Manjari, and so on. Rupa Manjari is none other than Rupa Goswami. Krishnasyapi Nija Samahitatve api taj janasya ujjvala bhavika nishtatvat Nija Samahitat adhikam. The practicing devotees who eagerly hanker for the brilliantly lustrous, pure mood of the sweet paramar love, Ujjvala Bhav. So this is referring to the conjugal love. Possess an extraordinarily profound determination, Nishta. They have what? Great Nishta. Of this Nija Samattatve means these pure devotees, the eternal associates of the Lord, the gopis, they have very profound determination, Nishta. So that's why Nishta is one of the stages for the Ujjvala Bhav of Krishna's associates, namely Sri Radha and the other Vraj maidens, which is greater than their Nishta for the desired object, Sri Krishna himself. Now, here is a very important point to understand. Those who are practicing Raghunaga Bhakti, their determination is more to follow the dear devotees of Krishna than to directly follow Krishna. This is a very important point for us to understand. So, if you ask a question, we should be attached more to devotees, pure devotees of Krishna, or to the deities. Of course, we should be attached to more to both, but our attachment and nishta should be more to Krishna's dear devotees, because they are very dear to Krishna. So his nishta is more firm in the eternal associates of Krishna than compared to Krishna himself. Hence, such devotees deeply hanker for this mood of his devotees. Ujjvala bhavika nishtatvat nija samaya atta adhikam. Adhikam means it is more, it is more. Vraje vasam iti asamarte manasyapi. Kuryat vrajavasam sada means that one should live always and reside in Vraj. The implication is that if this is physically possible, one should dwell there mentally. Sadhaka sharira vasastu uttara shlokartata prapta eva. However, the next verse quoted from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu clearly explains that the sadhaka should take up residence in Vraj physically. So, although in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu it is mentioned that one should reside in Vraja, Srila Prabhupada is our founder Acharya, and he has given us the ideal mood. He has created in every of his temples the mood of Vrindavan. In fact, he took Vrindavan to the whole world and established Vrindavan. That's why in West Virginia there is a new Vrindavan, the new Gita Nagari. In many countries, the new Navdeep, new Mayapur Dham. Now in the Arab countries, UAE countries, all are named, in the name of, there is Balram Desh. Bahrain is called as Balram Desh. Qatar is, I don't know what it is called. Dubai is called as Damodar Desh. So wherever we are residing, that is where we should, create Vrindavan and preach. Because this preaching is very dear to Srila Prabhupada, and it will make us dear to Krishna, by which we can, get entrance into these higher levels of devotion. So that is why Prabhupada has given this mood. So although it mentions physical residence, but none of our acharyas after Prabhupada, we see all the sannyasis that they are not residing in Vrindavan. They are residing in many parts of the world and they have created their Vrindavan and they are preaching. So that is the ideal mood of our founder Acharya, and we should follow that. Yeah, Mathura Desh is Muscat, Oman. Somebody told me here. So, okay. So now the next verse of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu we are taking now. Any questions you have about till now what we discussed? Any questions, any clarifications? So we will take now just one more verse and the explanation by only Jiva Goswami, and next week we will discuss further on these verses. So we just had only 8 classes. It's just only 1 month that we have started discussing this Raghunaga Bhakti, and we are seeing that there is so much, uh, given by our acharyas about this, and there is so much need to understand this. So let us now discuss this second verse of a practice of a Raghunaga Bhakta. सेवक साधक रूपेण सिद्ध रूपेण चात्र ही तद भाव लिप्सुन कार्य व्रज लोकानुसारित. Following the inhabitants of Vraja Loka Anusarita, one should perform service, seva hi karya, in one's physical body, sadhaka rupena, and in one's siddha body, siddha rupena cha, with the desire for a particular bhav. Tad bhava lipsuna. Lipsu means desire. So here in this verse, there is this term used, sadhaka rupena and siddha rupena. And this will be an elaborate discussion which we'll be having next week. But we will just see what Jiva Goswami has to say. Sadhaka Rupa refers to the physical body of the practitioner. Siddha Rupa refers to the body which is suitable for one's desired service and which has been developed by internal meditation. So we saw that internal meditation. Initially, at Nishtha, we are self-realized, and we have a general attraction for a particular mood. So that Siddha Deha development starts from there. Then we have a particular attraction and for a particular mood. So slowly, this internal development of the Siddha Deha starts happening. Internal development of the spiritual body. The Siddha Roop is given by a guru on the path of Rag Bhakti when he sees the qualification for Raghunaga Bhakti and a particular inclination in a particular disciple. So this is not something whimsical that, you come to know about your spiritual, form, spiritual mood, spiritual inclination. All this is in consultation with the guru. We saw the importance, the guru's role, higher importance and role starts from here more, in fact, because it is only the guru who can actually test the disciple whether he is ready for it, whether these symptoms are there. He can all understand this. Theoretically, this would be a form as an associate of one of the prominent devotees in Vraja with a specific rasa, dasya, sakya, vatsalya, or madhurya. Along with the form, specific dress and service for Krishna throughout the day would be given. Now, this is what this discussion is. We will, see in the next verse, in the next week. So, according to our mood, then we have some service which, will be given, which we would like to do for Krishna, which is very dear to us. However, forms of manjiris, assistant of Sakis of Radha, seems to be the most prominent forms given. Because I told you, we are following Rupa Manjari. We are Rupanugas. So this is the most prominent Unnata Ujjvala Ras. This is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to give. The details are given in the works of Gopal Guru Goswami, Dhyana Chandra Goswami, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So these details are given by these Goswamis, and our spiritual masters, will guide us in that path when it is needed. One serves with a desire for a particular bhava or rati of an associate of Krishna situated in Vraj, tad bhava lipsuna. One should follow in the footsteps of a dear associate of Krishna in Vraja Loka, and others loyal to him. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. One performs service with Sadhaka Rupa, the present body, and with the Siddha Rupa, the body which is suitable for serving Vraj Krishna in a particular type of rati or bhava one desires, and which appears through inner contemplation with a desire for a particular rati directed to one's beloved Krishna situated in Vrindavan. So this is also the same thing he's saying. Note, the idea here is that the idea here is it is simultaneous in Raganaga Bhakti, not at the same instant, but during the same period. For instance, for some hours he will meditate, and the rest of the day he will chant and read and do deity services. So this sadhaka, there are two types of engagement of activities. One is external, he follows all the rules. So Raganaga Bhakta, he some hours sits and meditates, and some hours he is doing external activities in his sadhaka sharir. That is, he is reading, he's chanting, he's doing deity worship. So with his sadhaka sharira, he is doing this. That is the point. One should follow after the dear devotees of Krishna, such as Radha, Lalita, Vishaka, Shri Rup Manjari, and those following after them, persons such as Sri Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, Laja, Loka, Anusarata. Accordingly, one should perform mental service in one's Siddha Rupa, following after the examples of Shri Radha, Lalita, Vishaka, Shri Rup Manjari, and others. Now, as I told you, what is this internal Siddha? Sadhaka Rupena, we can understand with whatever this body we have, we are performing devotion. But Siddha Rupena, we will go into an elaborate discussion in the next week. We will wait till the next week as to understand what this is. In one's physical body, one should perform services using one's body, following after persons such as Rupa and Sanatan Goswami situated in Braj. So physical body, how Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami did their bhajan, that is how we should, in our sadhaka day, we should perform services following in their footsteps. By word, Vraja Loka, one should understand persons situated in Vraj, Radha, Chandravali, and others. Following after them, one should perform service using one's physical body also. Some modern persons following the Sauramya Sampradaya, now here is one deviation, think that persons such as Radha did not perform services such as surrendering to Guru, following Ekadashi vows, and serving Shaligram and Tulsi. So we also need not do these activities. So there is one Sauramya Sampradaya. This is again a deviation. We are seeing that we should also follow the eternal associates. We should do the services, following them. But there is one deviation which is called as the Sauramya Sampradaya, where they say, oh, Radharani did not surrender to Guru. She did not follow Ekadasi vows. She did not serve Shaligram. So we also need not do these external activities. That idea is defeated here. Jiva Goswami in his commentary has explained this with the word Vrajalokas tu atra Krishna preshtas janas tu anugatas cha tad anusrata. Vrajaloka means those dear to Krishna, like Sri Radha, and persons following after them, like Sri Rupa, one should follow in their footsteps. So Jiva Goswami has made it very clear. Now, what I'll be discussing is a long discussion of what is the Sadhaka Rupena and Siddha Rupena. And it is almost like, I feel around, let me see, it is around 33, 34, 13 slides. So it will take time. So already it is 8:20. So I will stop here because I would like to continue the thread of thought. So in the next week, we will see what is the Sadhaka Rupena and Siddha Rupena, how Shivram Swami Maharaj explains. And we will see now the third, Raghunaga practice, the third verse, and that will end the discussion of the practice of the Raganuga Bhakti. Further, in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami will describe the divisions in Raganuga Bhakti, that is Kamanuga Bhakti, Sambandhanuga Bhakti. And within Kamanuga Bhakti, there are two subdivisions which he will discuss, and he will give some references from the scriptures. So that will end the discussion in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So we will require few more sessions, at least I feel 8 to 10 sessions, to discuss systematically, what Rupa Goswami has given in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So any questions, any clarifications you have regarding what we discussed till now? Okay then. So we will stop here now, and we will meet next week, Saturday and Sunday, to continue further discussion. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Srila Rupa Goswami Pad ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu ki